So, welcome to Live for Now, the Lowdown with me, Gina Broadhurst, and my lovely guest this evening, Lara Besbrode. Hi, Lara.
Hello there.
Back with another series of Live for Now, the Lowdown. There's been a little hiatus since series one, so this is series two. And Live for Now, the Lowdown is all about seizing the moment and showing women that midlife is not a pause. It is absolutely a time for you to get on that rocket ship and do whatever it is that you've been putting off, too afraid to do, too busy to do. If there's something that in your life that you've wanted to switch up or conquer a new skill, midlife is absolutely the time to do it. And if anybody knows that better than me, it's Lara. And that's what she's here today.
Thank you.
So, for those of you, Lara has a very large following on social media, I should say 108,000 last time I looked on Instagram. So, some of you may know Lara. And as a 56-year-old woman, she's absolutely core to my kind of midlife women demographic. So, you may be well aware of Lara. But for those that are not, Lara Besbrode is an award-winning businesswoman. She has a very successful business that's just won another award as a global matchmaker. She is also a transformation legend. She turned her life around, a complete U-turn at the age of 50, I believe,
Yeah.
and completely overhauled her life, losing a staggering amount of weight and just completely changing her mindset and her outlook on life. And I'm not going to put words in Lara's mouth now. So, with that short intro, Lara, tell us all about that magical journey from 50 to 56, how it started, and where you're at today.
So first of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on your platform and to your audience. And I think that you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. For me, going into menopause, going into sort of what people call the word change, and I love the word change because it really is a big pivotal time in a woman's life for all sorts of different reasons. And for me, it kind of started at 48 to 50, which was that perimenopausal stage where you're kind of in denial. And, you know, for me, my career was starting to change. My life was changing because I had changed countries. I was entering into an international divorce. And as I sort of hurtled into menopause was when I turned 50. And that also coincided, can you believe it, with the building of, changing career and deciding I wanted to build an international matchmaking agency, going into a global pandemic. I mean, what a time to launch a business. Hitting, getting divorced, which was just, it's a whole other show to talk about. But
Yeah.
most importantly was this whole menopause nightmare that I found myself in, where I was continuously gaining weight, unable to lose weight, unhappy in myself, struggling with all of the nightmare, different layers of symptoms, which just kept coming in. There just never seemed to be an end in sight with the symptoms. And so when I turned 50, it was this massive crescendo, and we went into lockdown. And that 1 year, sort of 50 to 51, was the building of the business, but me getting bigger. I was in lockdown, which was kind of like the perfect storm for me because I didn't have to see people. And yet I was getting bigger and bigger, unhealthy food choices, drinking too much alcohol. I'd always trained. I've always been into fitness and looking after myself from a fitness point of view, but nothing that I seemed to be doing was working. And when we came out of lockdown in age 51, was at my biggest. And when my business was really taking off and I started to be getting TV appearances like being in the Real Housewives of Cheshire, being on BBC News with, pandemic love stories and so on and so forth, which was brilliant from a PR perspective for the business. I was starting to see myself on screen, which of course they say adds weight onto you. And everybody is sort of saying to me, oh, this is brilliant that your career is doing so well. You've changed your career in your 50s. And isn't this great now that you're divorced? And all I was seeing was this bigger and bigger person who, how I looked really, in my opinion, was an indication of just how unhappy I was with myself and how miserable I was with all of the many, menopause symptoms that I was going through. And when I got to sort of 51 and realized that, the businesses were here to stay, we were winning awards, we were being recognized, and we were doing so well looking after everybody else with their love lives and, building the transformation side of the business, I felt a little bit of a fraud because I thought, well, I'm doing all of this great work with my team, supporting other people, but I'm just not supporting myself. And so there was a whole, people say, what was the one thing that drove you to start the journey to losing 9 stone and to rebuilding myself physically and mentally? And it was a combination of things, Gina. And so I then spent age sort of 51 to 53, 54. It took me 4 years to lose 9 stone. And on that journey, obviously I lost a tremendous amount of weight, but I weight trained all the way through. I changed my approach to what I was eating. I've cut out alcohol, and obviously I'm going to give you a very shortened version. Cut out alcohol, and of course started to shuffle dance, which was a gift
Yes.
to me, age 55, on my 55th birthday in December 23. And so I'm like 19 months into this explosive shuffle journey where I'm now, obviously that's really how my social media has blown up, because I am in the space of, for me, it's all about sharing to women our age,
Yeah.
really sort of mid-40s upwards. It's never too late to change. I am living evidence that if you want it, you can change your life. There is actually nothing that will hold you back. And people that are listening to this, and this is something that I'm asked every day, how did you know how to change? How did you know when to change? What is it that you did to change? And everybody's story is different. Everybody's way that they handle menopause symptoms or life changes is different. But the one thing that I say is the most important gift that I could potentially give to everybody is you've got to fall back in love with yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to fall back in love with yourself, because if you don't put yourself first, then you can't start the journey to change.
Absolutely. And I can echo you from a different start point for a different reason, but the results were the same. I fell back in love with myself in my late 40s. I decided to make a change slightly on a whim, but because I'd been having tough time with my health and myself, and I found pageantry and I entered a pageant, and I just thought it would be a short-term project, 6-7 months from when I entered to when I competed. And that was 3-4 years ago now. And what have I got? So currently I am the reigning Ultimate International Elite Mrs. United Kingdom. So
I
me and
love
pageantry are going well together as it stands. I'm off to the States in 4 weeks to represent our country, to compete,
I
which is super
love that.
exciting.
I
And 4 years ago, I didn't even know what pageantry was. Well,
I love
actually, what I knew was a complete load of hogwash. I'd got it completely wrong. So
yes.
to your point, it's never too late. Fall back in love with yourself. Find something to be passionate about, to fire you up and light you up. And for you, that's without doubt shuffle dancing. You can see that
So
in all of your videos.
with me, it's in the last 19 months it's shuffle dancing. But the interesting thing for me with the how did I fall back in love with myself, because fitness has always been really, really important to me. And I think that we walk a little bit of a double-edged sword as we get older, because media focuses so much on youth, and the beauty industry, the fashion industry, social media, it's rammed down our throats,
Yeah.
especially to women. And so the messaging that I was constantly seeing, especially when I was in lockdown and building a business that was about being able to help other people find love, was that I was too old to shuffle dance. I was too overweight. I was too this. I was too that. I couldn't wear certain clothes. If I wanted to do this, I was made to feel like that. And what I found that was a really, really important thing to me was to understand what beauty means at our age, what love means at our age, what change means at our age, and that, you know, the one thing that I'm really loving is seeing the stories of, you know, women being proud about their age. And that's, you know, that's something that I'm championing. It's about showing that, you know, people say to me, you shouldn't be shuffle dancing at your age, you shouldn't be wearing that outfit, you know, that's a young person's dance, that's a young person's outfit.
Who are
And,
these
you know,
people?
who
Goodness
are these
me.
people, especially women, because women can be really harsh critics of other women. And I base that down onto the fact that perhaps they're just not that happy with themselves, and so perhaps they project that out. And what I say is, you know, whatever age you are, whether you are, you know, there might be younger people listening to this, there might be older people listening to this. And so, exactly as you did, when I turned 50, I had a 35-year successful career in marketing, heading up my own marketing and PR agencies. How on earth did I decide to become a matchmaker? And it was really sort of based on the fact that I love meeting people and I love introducing people. Normally, it would have been for business. So I was
Mm,
always a natural networker.
yeah,
And I loved meeting new people, talk to people. And so I decided to sort of embrace something completely different. I had no idea what it meant. And I just thought, well, you just put two and two people together. So I did my certification in lockdown with the Global Matchmaking Institute in New York. And so I got myself certified. And then being able to sort of apply knowledge and expertise from the past. And so this also sort of comes back to being able to pivot into something new, as you've done and as I've done. It's scary. You know,
yeah,
it doesn't just happen. We didn't just suddenly become successful in what we've both chosen to do. It's
no,
taken hours upon hours of dedication. And I always talk about the 4 Ds, which are devotion, dedication, determination, and discipline. And they are the 4 Ds that I incorporate not only in work, but in myself and in this sort of application of understanding how to change.
yeah,
And going into this part of our life isn't scary. It's so phenomenally exciting, because what happens when we start to look internally at our age is that we start to discover things about ourselves that we've either ignored for years, we've never ever believed that we could do something so different, so dynamic, so, you know, far away from whatever we've maybe studied in or the
mm,
careers that we've chosen. And so many people, women that I speak to, say, I want to learn to dance. I want to do a different career. I wish I could wear the things that you wear. I wish I could, you know, dye my hair blonde or do whatever. And my whole sort of belief system is based on the fact that try it. What's
yeah,
the worst that can happen?
yeah,
You know, you don't do it again. I mean, what is the worst that can happen?
yeah.
You know, might make a little bit of a fool of yourself, but so what? The beauty
I'm
of being, you know, our age is that we can just brush it off.
I'm the queen of making a bit of a fool of myself. I do love to drop a clanger. I'm quite well known for being very clumsy and a little bit
Lo-
idiotic. But you know what? It's fun. We don't strive for perfection in my book. We just strive for improvement. Little bit of improvement every day. That's all we can ask for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, and if, as the saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And
Absolutely.
you know, and this sort of comes down to certainly with regards to losing weight. And I tried everything, like a lot of women. I tried all of the big brand slimming clubs. I'm not even going to name them because I don't support any of them. All of the, you know, the diet products, the yo-yo fads and everything.
Hmm.
And the one thing that works is less in your gob, more movement, loads of water. And what works for you, Gina, will not work for me. What works for the next person will not work for the other person. And so, what you have to do as an individual when you get to our age as well, especially when your metabolic rate is sluggish, is you
Yeah.
do not do one thing continuously. one week, and this is what worked for me, and this is how I lost a pound every week until I hit my 9 stone weight loss, which is actually I lost more than I weigh now. Not because, that was my, my goal. It's just the way this journey has taken me, especially with the shuffle dancing, which just burns a ridiculous amount of calories without
Yeah.
to try because of the cardio. But some weeks I would be eating 6 meals a day, high protein, totally unprocessed, home cooked food, and weight training. I weight trained 3 times a week for 4 years to push the bulk of the weight off. Really good when you're in menopause, with your bone density, etc. Again, don't be afraid of lifting weights. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Drinking lots of water. And I would go through 3 weeks of following that for myself. And then if I noticed that the weight was not shifting, then I would start to do, where I would basically be fasting. So I would fast before I trained. And so I would sort of not eat anything after 6 o'clock until midday the next day, but I would train in the morning. Try that for a week. And then I would increase my water consumption. So you've constantly got to keep on switching it up so that your metabolic rate is being challenged. And there's a
Yeah.
whole load of, scientific stuff behind this that I'm not even going to, try and touch on. But for people who, it's very easy to just say, oh, I'm in menopause, it's all over. I'm in menopause, my life, I can't change career because of this, or I can't move because my body hurts because I'm overweight, or I can't this or I can't that. I didn't go from 0 steps to super advanced shuffle dancing overnight.
No,
I trained every day for hours through pain. When I started, every bone in my body hurt.
I can imagine.
Hurt, ached, my knees swelled up, I twisted my ankles, I broke toes, fell over. You know how you were saying clumsy? I'm so clumsy. I'm such a klutz. And the thing is, it was like, I have this desire to be able to shuffle dance on my Instagram. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show what an idiot I've been on this journey. And I literally have shared the journey. And it's
Yeah.
something that seems to have resonated. I had, I don't know, 1,000 followers. I had no idea how to use Instagram. I have no idea how to use TikTok. But I'd always been a bit of a Facebook queen. I've been involved in digital marketing for so long. And I remember putting, day one, the day one reel now has 2 million views. And that's not because of anything other than people seeing somebody make a fool of themselves and get back up and do it again. And
Mm.
so my point to anybody who's listening that's thinking, oh, I've been really putting off doing, XYZ, whatever that looks like for you. And it can feel scary because another sort of side effect of menopause that really hit me was social anxiety. Never had it before. And yet I get crippled with meeting people, going into meetings. I'm used to doing big presentations in agencies, used to meeting people. And I suddenly got this sort of crippling social anxiety. And so pushing myself out of my comfort zone and saying to myself, which I'd never been able to do, it took me quite some time through the weight loss journey. These things didn't magically happen just because I'd lost weight. It's like a tried and tested thing, where I've been mortified at what I've been putting out there on social media, what I've been saying in interviews, what I've been saying in the media, and so on and so forth. It all comes back to this self-belief. And at the very, very beginning, I worked with a transformation coach. I am now a transformation coach. So I represent clients and work with clients on this journey. We have a whole transformation team in my agency. But the one thing that she got me to do, which I still do, which is the biggest sort of nightmare for me at the time, especially when I was at my biggest and I hated my body and I hated myself and I had all this self-loathing going on, was she taught me how to stand in front of a mirror and to literally touch the mirror and talk to myself and tell myself that I loved myself. And I had various sort of mantras that I learned with her, which I've developed my own now, that I teach my clients to do. And one of the things that I'd like to share, if that's okay with you, Gina, is
Absolutely.
I say to my clients, you stand in front of the mirror or wherever you are in your day when things get a little bit too much, and you just take a few moments, you control your breathing, and I'm not going to sort of go into breathing exercises now, but you would go through a set of breathing exercises. And I like you to sort of cross your arms like this. Maybe you can do this with me now.
I will do it with you.
And, this is almost like, you're holding your heart, you're holding your chest, especially for women who might be going through, breast cancer or any of the difficulties and complications that they might be dealing with. And you've done your breathing and you look at yourself and you say, I am Gina. So you'll have to say this with me.
I am
I'm
Gina,
Gina and I am amazing.
and I am amazing.
I am Gina
I am Gina,
and I am incredible.
and I am incredible.
I am Gina
I am Gina,
and I am amazing and incredible.
and I am amazing and incredible.
There's a lovely smile on your face, Gina, and you breathe in and you just take those words and let them bathe all over you, because a lot of us are in situations where nobody says a kind word to us during the course of the day. And another thing, as you're going through this stage in your life, is you can feel very isolated and alone. And the one person who can remind you of just how amazing you are is yourself.
Agreed.
And doesn't it feel
Absolutely.
nice when you say those words to yourself?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Have positive affirmations that I use. I I wouldn't quite go as far as to say I'm a manifester, but I think I am naturally. Yeah, so I've done a lot of stuff like we wrote our limiting beliefs on a large glass bottle,
Yeah,
and then
love
we
that.
smashed it to smithereens and we walked on it. We walked on broken glass
I love that. I
at an
love
empowerment event that I ran a couple of years ago, and that was like powerful stuff. So I'm with you. I'm
I
with
love that.
you. The
And
way you speak
yeah,
to yourself is so important.
when we actually stop in the midst of our busy life, in the midst of, whether we're parents, grandparents, or running busy careers, or we might not be, we might be very isolated as an individual. And if you actually stop and listen to the words in your head and the conversation that's rolling on, most of us unfortunately run quite negative dialogue to ourselves. A lot of it can be linked right back to, childhood wounds that haven't been healed, etc. And I found that when I went into menopause and everything was heightened, everything seemed to be very exaggerated, from the weight gain, from the symptoms, from the brutal way that I was speaking to myself. And it just sort of got worse and worse and worse. And so that meant that I was just making so many poor decisions for myself. And yet, because of how society and people sort of lump this belief that, oh, you're in menopause, it's because of that, it's almost as if it becomes an excuse. And you shove it all into that box and you just don't deal with it. And so when people say to me, especially women who will say to me, well, I can't do this because I'm in menopause. Well, I can't do that because I'm 52. Well, I can't do that because I'm 63 and you're 56, so you don't have the pay. And I just sort of say, stop with the negative words that you're using. And if you start at the very, very, beginning of your day, even if you don't have time for the whole, the rest of the day, but when you get out of bed and give gratitude to yourself for being amazing, and like you said, incorporate things, whether it be journaling, whether it be manifesting, whether it be gratitude, but this all comes back to kindness and being kind to yourself, because how can you expect anybody else to love you, want you, be nice to you, be kind to you, if you're not doing it for you, for yourself? And so that's sort of really sort of the foundation and my pillars of sort of what guide me forward. And I'm very much in the space of, I've made it through menopause, I've made it through an international divorce, I've built a business that's 5 years in. Yes, I'm a multi-award winning matchmaker along with my team who are brilliant. Yes, we help lots and lots of people to find their person, and I've lost weight and I've done all these incredible things. But you've got to sort of come back to the fact that, I'm incredibly grateful to my family, to my children, but most of all, the fact that finally, after years, I've finally fallen back in love with myself, and that's
That
so
is the holy grail, isn't it? I
yeah,
think that
it's
is ultimately
so
what it's all about.
important. And going back to what you were saying about, you never thought that you were going to be able to, with the whole pageant side, etc., etc. It's like, you would not be able to do this if you didn't have your self-belief and love for yourself. Because I think it helps, it gives you confidence and pride in yourself, this self-belief. And again, if people are sort of saying, well, I have no self-belief, it's something that you can nurture. It doesn't just pop up for you. It's something that you have to dig deep, and you've got to
I
sort
have
of
to say, for me, pageantry built,
build your self-belief. Yeah.
for
Which is,
me, pageantry built that belief, I have to
yeah,
say. When I signed up for pageant number one, I had absolutely no self-confidence. I didn't know how to walk. I didn't know anything about pageantry, the
yeah,
wardrobe, interview is a big part of pageantry. Now, I'm a confident speaker. My
yeah,
job for 25 years, I worked in marketing in London. I presented to global agencies and their clients. So the interview side of it was my comfort zone. But the on stage, the showmanship, the walking,
different.
the bit, the front of house bit that everyone associates with pageantry,
Yeah,
I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't know what I'm doing. But, fake it till you make it. And I practiced, much like you're shuffling, hours and hours of walking up and down behind the sofa while the kids watch TV,
yeah,
up and down, and hiring halls and going in dance studios. And
yes,
yeah,
yeah. and,
rehearsal,
and
rehearsal, rehearsal.
absolutely, it's, you can't just change your life and walk into a new career and everything's a bed of roses, because we're in our 50s. It still means that there's hours of work and discipline and investment into
Yeah,
yourself and time and consideration and so on and so forth. But I
yeah,
think that it's, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this to me is the golden stage of my life. You know, I really do
I
believe
agree.
in myself. I am a version that I've never seen before. I am a completely different person to who I was in my 40s, in my 30s, in my 20s, in my teens, and obviously as a child. I am so completely different. And it's very interesting because, and I'm sure you'll have experienced this, Gina, because you'll meet people from your past, and, it can be quite overwhelming for them because in their mind you're that person from that different stage that they knew you. And some people
But
are
you're not.
incredibly supportive, but a lot of people aren't. And,
Yeah,
you've also got to deal with that kind of, what does she think she's doing? Who does she think she is? And all the rest of it. So people in, women in particular in our age bracket and older, look at all this hoo-ha that's been about, Pamela Anderson not wearing makeup. So what that she's not wearing
yeah, get
makeup?
over it, guys. Get
You know,
over it.
so bloody what if somebody isn't dyeing their hair anymore and wants to wear their hair without hair dye, all
Do you
of
know
these things.
there are so many more interesting things to say about Pamela Anderson and who she is and what she believes in than the fact she doesn't wear makeup. And how many years has she not been wearing makeup? And they still go on about it.
They're still going on about it. What she's done for PETA, what she's done for so many different causes, who she is as an individual, and there are so many of us like Pamela who have got so many incredible things to say other than how we look, which is of course something that you've obviously experienced in what you're doing, because it isn't just you walking down a catwalk. There's an enormous amount of work that's involved for you doing what you're doing. And in the same way that people think, oh, you're a matchmaker, it's so glamorous, there's a phenomenal amount of work that we have to do in our business with our clients, or a phenomenal amount of work that you have to do if you want to change. And
Yeah.
my favorite mantra is it's never too late to change.
Totally
That's
agree
what
with you. Now, I've got I'm going to wrap this up with one last question then, because I think we've covered an enormous amount of ground in 30 minutes. And I'm really grateful to have had your wisdom and your insight as both
I
somebody who has completely turned their life around from personal perspective, but also as a professional, as a transformation coach. So
think.
thank you so much. So my final question to you is then, if you could go back and give 35-year-old you, 35-year-old Lara, or even 25-year-old Lara, one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would that one piece of advice be?
Okay, so don't marry him. Oops, sorry, did I say that? Um, um, 25-year-old me would never have listened. So you can forget that version. 35-year-old me was, I had my I've got three children. I had two children, aged, I had one aged 31 and a half, the other one aged 33. So at 35, I was very, very dull and mummyish and, starting to put on the weight. If I could have given her one piece of advice back then, it would have been, you need to learn to love yourself.
Great advice.
Thank you.
That will
I wish,
take everyone far. I really do believe self-love is the key.
thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Lara. I'm gonna finish the episode with just that message of love yourself because I think it's perfect. And I just want everyone watching to know that, in my opinion, and I think Lara's from what you said, midlife can be incredible and amazing. It's about reinvention. It's about discovering who you are. It's so much more than all the old hokey stereotypes that we are fed. So I want
absolutely.
everyone to embrace their moment and live for now. And thank you for watching. And thank you for joining me, Lara.